I'm Troy McClure, and I'll leave you with what we all came here to see, hardcore nudity.
Alrighty, well, after a couple of botched attempts, we are here at the Wild Extra Giles and the Goalies podcast. Long story, folks. But anyway, we're actually, unfortunately, down a goalie this week. Giles Farrell's in the house, sort of. I, Ben Remington, am in the house, sort of. And we're joined, instead of by Charlie, we're joined by another Wild Extra writer, Dustin Luke Nelson. How's it going tonight, Dustin?
It's going well. The Wild game turned out all right. I'm a relief goalie, which is going really well for the Wild right now. We bring in one every game, and then you get to win.
Yeah, they really have kind of like a baseball relief pitcher thing going right now, and they're just killing it with the bullpen.
So that 2 goalies in a row getting a win in relief at home?
Yeah, like the Kansas City Royals of hockey. All right, so...
It's actually pretty cool. You got to see a game tonight where 4 goalies played.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing, but it's memorable.
Not since mini mites have I seen that. It was very exciting.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, that's the maximum. I don't think that... I don't know that I've ever seen a game with 5 goalies, so I think we've reached the absolute cap on that, I'm pretty sure.
Peak goalie saturation.
Yes. So yeah, anyway, tonight obviously wrapped up a very tumultuous, I guess you could say, game with the Wild. They kind of came out firing on all cylinders, had some early luck, some early nice goals from a returning Zach Parise and a highlight reel wonder from Nino Niederreiter. And then after that, the wheels kind of came off a little bit, helped out by a lot of second period penalties and some really, really horrific bounces in the third period that ended Nicholas Backstrom's night. What did you guys, Dustin? What did you think of the game there? What did you think of the roller coaster ride we went on tonight?
I don't even know which game to talk about. It was like 3 games happened tonight.
Pretty much.
It's like the Wild played one really good game. There was just kind of like a rugby scrap in the middle, and then the Jets played an excellent game tonight.
Yeah.
It was hard to watch at times. The Wild played okay all up together, but the penalties in the second made it. It was just weird. You saw guys like Charlie Coyle playing less than 10 minutes. You just don't really see. I think Fontaine was under 10 minutes too. It was just a kind of a weird paced game with all the penalties in the second.
Yeah, I think Mike Gill mentioned in his post-game presser that both Coyle and Fontaine played less than 10 minutes, and he was really disappointed in that.
Mm. Yeah, I saw that as well in his post-game presser, and this is kind of what happens when you spend like literally the entire second period on the penalty kill. Not entirely because of Keith Ballard, but sort of with him suddenly becoming the de facto Wild badass for whatever reason or another. But it was really, really a weird kind of 3-period game. You really did see kind of 3 different hockey games all at once. But I guess what I'm taking away from it is that in the end, even though they choked away yet another third-period 3-goal lead, they put it together and regained their composure for the final half of the third period and came out on top early in the overtime, which is obviously a much better result than what happened at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, we'll take that any day over what happened at MSG. It'd be great, though, if they could find a way to transition and kind of get the momentum back without having to pull the goalie. Mm-hmm. In 2 games in a row, they said they had to pull the goalie to change the momentum. It just means it's not necessarily the goalie's fault. They're getting pulled. There's something weird going on, and they're letting bounces in and letting guys get odd man rushes.
Yeah, it was weird. Yo even said that in the presser that he pulled Backstrom 100% because of momentum. He didn't have an issue at all with how Backstrom played, and admitted that the 3 goals that were let in were all just kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of fluky bounces that Backstrom didn't really have much of a shot at. But He had already used his timeout after the second goal was allowed, so after the third goal was allowed, he felt that it was dire enough of a situation momentum-wise that he needed to pull Backstrom in order to kind of stall out the Jets' buzz a little bit.
Yeah, that was probably the better thing to do, was to make a goalie switch, and it was definitely not any indication of how Backstrom played, because at least in the second period, at least, he was pretty outstanding, making some pretty good saves on one of about 1,000 penalty kills the Wild had that period. But
yeah, if he wasn't on his game, that goes a different way.
Yeah, the Jets probably score a couple goals in that second period, and it's a completely different game going in the third.
And what it ended was the Jets had 8 power plays in the game and 3 5-on-3s. Not letting them get a power play goal is kind of miraculous at that point.
Yeah, that really speaks to how good the PK has been. I mean, it's been really good this year. But games like this, I mean, essentially, obviously the third period notwithstanding, but the PK basically won us this game, because anytime you can turn away 8 power plays and still get a win in that game by a goal in overtime, you really have to chalk that up to how well your penalty kill is going. And that's huge. That's obviously a huge departure from what we saw last season, and hopefully they can keep it up, because it's been a really incredible start for the penalty kill this year.
And also, I guess, we thought the Wild were pretty bad at scoring goals, at least lately, but the Jets haven't been any better. Trying to look it up here, and it looks like the Jets average 1.8 goals per game, so that's pretty bad for them. So just so be thankful they allowed us to kill 8 penalties tonight.
Yeah, that's rough. But they're actually still a point ahead of us in the division standings because of the overtime loss by them tonight. So, anytime you can beat a team in your division, it's great. And anytime you can beat a team ahead of you in your division, it's great. I really don't like, kind of handing them that extra point, relinquishing that third goal, or that third period lead. But I guess at the end of the day, you just be thankful that you got a win, and you're on a 3-game winning streak after a 4-game losing streak. So that's definitely a positive.
Yeah, I think I was pretty happy with how the new lines have gone too. That second line, centered by Granlund with Charlie Coyle and Nino Niederreiter on the wings, so that kind of got switched up toward the end of the game. It has looked really good. That's been a great line for them. And really, I think that was a big reason they won in Dallas, is that line was really sharp.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, the Parise, Koivu, Pominville line never really looked like they missed a beat, even though they haven't been a line in about 10 months at least. Or at least tonight. They look pretty sharp as well.
Yeah, I think overall, all the line change-ups have gone pretty well. The third line is maybe a little hit and miss, but I think since those line changes, not that they're even necessarily connected to that, Howell has just made up for it and looking really great shorthanded since then. He was awesome against Dallas on the PK.
Yeah, he's actually improved a lot, to me at least, the last, 3-4 games. He maybe hasn't shown it in terms of a point scale, except for maybe the goal yesterday, but there's definitely been a lot of improvement in his game compared to the beginning of the year.
Yeah, he's starting to look a little bit more like he did at the end of the season, like he's joining in the rush a little bit more, showing his speed, not just out there on the penalty kill, like he's making big plays. And 2 times, actually, writing about this for a while, actually, the 2 times in the neutral zone in the first period against Dallas, he burned about a minute of that penalty kill all by himself. Which isn't a small thing against, he was out against the Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, Jason Spezza line.
Yeah, and he really shut them down the last time they played. He was more or less handed the task of centering the line that would face them majority of the time, and that previous 4-1 win at the XL a couple weeks ago or a week or two ago was really kind of, that was really a feather in his cap as well. So his defense has obviously just been incredible. and it's really nice to see him playing even better defensively and adding in a goal here or there, which you kind of hope that he can progress with that a little bit, because with that speed, he's definitely got the potential to be an offensive weapon every once in a while.
Yeah. And with Vanek on that line, too.
Yeah.
When he's playing with him, he needs to be an offensive threat, because Vanek needs someone to help get him going.
He sure does.
I missed this tonight because I was at the game, but a high majority of people on Twitter said that Vanek said, "I can't catch a break," or was that just everyone saying he can't catch a break at the same time? Did he actually say that after he whiffed on that shot in the third period?
Russo tweeted that he said that. I don't know how Russo saw or heard that, if he was in the press box, but he said it in quotes that Vanek said, "I can't catch a break," or something like that, but I'm not exactly sure how he got that quote, so I don't know. Maybe he did say that, and somehow it was relayed to Russo. I don't know.
Yikes. Because, I mean, that's a fair assessment. At least he knows he can't catch a break, because he can't catch a break.
Yeah.
I got it. He's a Vanek on the bench. He'd use quotes, "I have no luck."
Oh, I have no... Well, same thing.
Oh.
That's what... How did he get a quote from the bench? That's impressive.
Bringing lip reading service with him.
Yeah, no doubt. Huh. Yeah, well, that's a fair point. I mean, and he also said in another tweet, too, that Vanek was squeezing his stick into sawdust, and that's why he whiffed on that third period shot, which is, you got to think that, maybe he's pressing a little bit now with just the lack of goal scoring, but I don't, who knows, maybe he doesn't care. Maybe he's happy with all the assists that he's piling up, too.
Even total points, he's well behind pace for where he's normally at.
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of use fancy stats to paint somewhat of a rosy picture, but it doesn't even, if you start comparing it to other seasons, he played more minutes, or it just doesn't add up that. It's slowing down too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was at 8 at it was like game 11 or 12, and now we're at 17 games, and he's only at 10, so he's definitely slowed down considerably.
Mm-hmm. And he's been shuffled around a little bit, too. Not that that's an excuse at all, but that's just Mike Yeo trying to get him going. Trying anything. I mean, basically just throwing stuff against a wall and seeing what sticks. Even going as far as creating an all Golden Gopher line and seeing how that worked, which didn't work out as well as some Golden Gopher rubes had hoped, but it's just really kind of been frustrating, and that whiff in the third period today when they really needed it to avoid handing Winnipeg that point would have been nice.
Yeah, that. I don't know. At this point, it's all in his head, and it's frustrating for him, and it's frustrating for us to sit here and watch him when he can't be at his best. I don't know.
Yeah, I still think it's going to get there. It's hard to watch, and he obviously needs to pick it up somehow and put it together, but he's going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I can't, maybe I just can't stand another Keatley versus Vanek story.
Yeah, I think the people that are going out on that limb, that might be a bit much. Same thing with the Havlat comps and whatnot. It's like, well, I don't know that we need to jump to that conclusion before we're a quarter way into his first season here yet. But
I haven't seen any Havlat Vanek ones that would. That's got to devolve to the point of they both have V's in their name. Pretty weird.
I don't know if I could keep my sanity if I saw a Havlat Vanek comparison.
Yeah, it's just you see all these knee-jerk reactions on him, and it's unfortunate, but it's getting to that point where the knee-jerk reactions are starting to maybe become a little more warranted because it's been a while. He hasn't really put a whole lot of points on the board. It's too bad.
Well, but at the same time, he is. I've been dogging him a bit, but he's third on the team in points.
Right.
His P60's all right. I mean, it's dropping, so it's less of a he's actually doing pretty well kind of thing. But he's third on the team in points overall. But whatever that's worth. It just means we're going to hear more about Koivu.
Well, Mikko's probably very thankful that Vanek showed up and is not going, hey, thanks, man, let me buy you dinner for taking all the media attention off you.
Exactly. There's definitely been some beers bought there. Holy Christ. You don't see a whole lot of hashtag strip the seed tweets when people are too busy bitching about Vanek passing and not shooting, I guess.
Yeah. Although, I'll admit, Mikko Koivu has shot the puck at an absurd rate this year for him because, I don't know, I haven't checked since like Thursday or Friday, but his shots per 60 minutes was third on the team, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, and he's taken the second most overall on the team, which makes sense. He's behind Parise probably in a S60. But he's also, I was looking through their stats afterward because a Koivu defender, so every now and then you have to check in and see, what's the best way. But he's behind Matt Cook in points right now.
Ooh, yeah.
Cook's played 8 games.
Yeah, I saw that the other day, too.
Also on top of playing 8 games, Matt Cook is Matt Cook.
Right.
It made me realize that Koivu's shooting percentage right now is 3.6%. Which he's not a high shooting percentage guy, but that's really low. Also, Matt Cook's is 28.6, which is about normal for him. He's very good.
Hey, good news for Mikko is that is 0.6% better than Thomas Vanek, who's shooting 3%.
If only they could find a way to let Mikko. If only they could find a way to let Mikko do his backhand move more often during gameplay instead of just during shootouts, he'd be set.
Yeah, there you go.
He's firing that one at about 90%, so you think it would even out a little bit there. Alrighty, well, along those lines, after that much-needed victory on the second end of a back-to-back, it was actually somewhat predicted this week on Wild Extra by one Dustin Nelson when you wrote your Central Station article, kind of talking Wild fans down from the ledge a little bit after the 4-game losing streak. And that is a good statistical look at why this losing streak shouldn't have been as alarming as a lot of people made it out to be, and a lot of people were really quick to compare it to the dreaded 6-game losing streak of last season. But a lot of really good stuff in there as far as possession numbers and shot attempts and that sort of thing. Kind of debunking the fact that it was the sky is falling type situation for the Wild after the loss in New Jersey last week.
Yeah, it just wasn't that bad of a situation. You don't want to be on a 4-game losing streak, and I know they kind of the advanced stats articles usually get a lot of anger thrown at them. It's not the end all be all. You do need to win games, but you're also going to lose games. Just not at the rate the Sabres are, but you're going to lose some games, and this is going to happen. And it was just they were out shooting teams, they're out possessing everyone. There was just no reason really to be concerned. It's way too early in the season to be losing your mind over 4 games, especially ones that could have gone either way. They weren't getting blown out like Colorado was at the exact same time. We saw Colorado losing by 6 goals, and the Wild were losing by 1, and everyone's tweeting "Fire Mike Yeo!" and let's give Patrick Waugh the Jack Adams again. It's awesome.
Oh no.
It's just all that came from, and it did play. It's not really predictive though. If you want to call me Magi, I'm okay with that. But that was just their shooting percentage is going to come up. They're going to score goals. The power play is not going to be at 5% forever. You hope. And the stats aren't current now, but we're looking at the Wild having a PDO, which if you don't read these stats regularly, is the combination of your shooting percentage and save percentage on ice was just so incredibly low. Like, they were not getting great goaltending, and they were shooting poorly, and that's just going to change. That's still their fault for the most part, but they aren't going to stay down there. And we already saw that. So they did get outshot for the first time against Dallas. And almost against Winnipeg.
I had a pair of thoughts when I read this piece. The first one was, your photo in that post was outstanding because it's Justin Fontaine giving a face wash to Marek Ziblicki. that just made me very, very happy. Second was, you just think of all the incredible saves goalies have made, and then you mentioned Corey Schneider making those 4 ridiculous saves against the Wild. It's just, eventually they're not going to make these incredible saves, or we're going to start scoring goals. So we'll be all right eventually.
Yeah, I think that was a great, that video they NHL.com put up with Schneider's 4 saves, big 4 saves against the Wild, was even if you don't buy any stats at all, which is not saying, but that's okay if you don't. You can just see there, you don't see goaltenders making crazy goal line saves like that 4 times in a game, and it was just happening to the Wild a bunch. And their goalies weren't doing any of those. They were doing 0.
Right, yeah, that was the weird part, was that we were facing struggling goalies, and they were, I wouldn't say that we were making them look good, but suddenly they were looking really good. Like, Schneider had just gotten yanked the night before in Boston, and then he comes out against us, and he looks like, Dominic Hasek circa 1998, and it just didn't make any sense. It was just kind of bizarre. And the same thing kind of with Greiss from Pittsburgh. He's a backup goalie and nothing really all that special at that, but he was making some really good saves. They had some pretty good opportunities, especially in that third period against Pittsburgh, but it just wasn't happening. And that kind of feeds the fire of people, tearing into the Wild as far as making backup and struggling goalies look good. But it was kind of, somewhat factual, unfortunately, during that 4-game losing streak.
And they weren't getting any of that out of Kemper either. And I think of the, I believe it was against the Canadiens, when Dumba kind of takes that dive toward the puck at the blue line, and they break out, and then Scandella kind of has terrible gap control, and it was Lars Eller scores from the boards. That was Kemper saw that the entire way and wasn't even stopping that. It was just the complete opposite of what was happening to the Wild.
Yeah, those ones are a nightmare. Speaking as a mediocre goalie with experience on that, those slap shots from the face-off dots are just brutal. You'd like to think that you have a good shot at him because you do see him the whole way, but they just come up on you so quick. It's easier than it looks to get beat short side when it's that hard of a shot coming from that close. And so I wasn't really to throw Kemper under the bus for that one, like a lot of people were. But it's more to your point. He wasn't making those circus-like saves to keep us in hockey games like the opposing goalies were.
Yeah, he wasn't, covering up their mistakes.
Right.
That was one, you could have covered up someone's mistake, and it was, everyone, there was a good excuse for every goal. Vanek gave up a puck, because there's never every mistake they made was answered with a goal. Well, they probably made a bunch of mistakes.
Yeah, there was definitely something. When Matt Dumba's name's getting brought up, there's mistakes being made on the ice. So that's just kind of the unfortunate reality of things, especially during that losing streak. He was really a scapegoat during that losing streak because he had some pretty rough games, most notably that one in Montreal.
Although now, really, since the losing streak's kind of ended, he's really, he hasn't played, great. You haven't gone, oh man, Dumba had a great game, but you also haven't said Dumba was terrible. So he's just played well.
Pretty much since Charlie wrote that article about him being sent down to Iowa, he's played all right. So I don't know if we're starting a trend here, but every time you or Giles or Charlie writes an article about somebody, it ends up doing the complete opposite thing very soon thereafter.
Yes, I would like to apologize to Ryan Carter for derailing his incredible start.
I'll be interested to see as they get healthy if Dumba actually goes to Iowa, because it seemed like it was kind of a foregone conclusion. He's played better, but he's also not getting a ton of minutes. He only played 8:35 against the Jets, which is partially that second period that was all penalties, but Ryan Suter had 8 minutes of penalties and played 28 minutes still. So,
boy,
it's a lot of time out off of the Wild bench.
It might be a record for him for not being on his own bench.
Yeah, just saying something.
I mean, with the way Keith Ballard has played the last couple games, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe once all the defensemen got healthy or reasonably close to it, we saw Dumba still go to Iowa just to get more minutes.
Right. Yeah, and actually we're only a semi-healthy Jonas Brodin away from having our top 4 defensemen back healthy, which seems like it's been forever since that's been the situation.
Yeah, it's only been about a month.
The only one they haven't lost from the starting 6 was Dumba and Suter.
Yeah.
Well, even more than that because Ballard went out.
Those darn mumps.
Yeah, do you guys, do you think we've heard the last of the dreaded mumps, or do you think that there's another round to go? Because I know they all took, I think, vaccination shots earlier this week. But is it a story that we hear, not necessarily with the Wild, but is it something that sticks around in the NHL for another month or so?
I certainly hope so. I mean, maybe from like a beat reporter standpoint, I hate to see somebody like Russo or Chad Graff end up getting the mumps just because they're around it every day. But I hope it's done. Otherwise, we should just do the right thing and torch the Honda Center.
I don't disagree with that. Alrighty, so on that note about the mumps, on Giles inciting a riot in Anaheim around the mumps.
At least you didn't say to leave Corey Perry inside. I thought that was going to wind up.
Well, I just thought that was implied.
Yeah, that was assumed. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, so do you guys have something, an article or a topic or a forum that you guys really enjoyed over the last week that we can hash around here?
Well, I mean, we can certainly go over the topic that our last podcast episode missed by a grand total of 5 minutes.
Yes.
Which was the Iowa Wild decided to, or I guess probably more so upper management of just the Minnesota Wild in general, decided that it was time for a coaching change, and they fired Kurt Kleinendorst after a season in, 12 games behind the bench. And he was replaced by his predecessor, John Torchetti, after a relatively unsuccessful year he had in the KHL. And since the firing, the Iowa Wild are 2-1, and they choked away their game last night, so they theoretically could have been 3-0 since they made a coaching change. And really, for me, I watched them the last couple nights. They look like a completely different hockey team from a week ago. It's pretty ridiculous to think that I'm watching the same players play. I don't know what you guys think. Yeah.
I haven't caught much of it. We were talking. I watched a couple periods, but I was kind of struck by John Torchetti was interviewed by Chad Graff on his show this weekend, and Torchetti was talking about it. He just said, why he liked working with this organization was that Fletcher said it was development first over wins. That he didn't really care about wins. He wanted them with a minute left in the game, putting a rookie out there. And if they lose a game, that's fine, because by Christmas, they'll win that game. Which, I don't know, he didn't intend it this way, but it just struck me then, okay, we're talking about a team that was 2-10, and you would have to assume that Kleinendorst is getting fired because they're 2-10. They're terrible. But if it was development first and wins didn't matter, and there's a lot more problems there than meet the eye, maybe.
Yeah, he certainly got that feel from it just because the wins were ugly, too. And then that was kind of the thing. I think if Kleinendorf was 2-10 and they were losing every game by 1 goal, and he was getting solid contributions, especially from the young guys, it probably wouldn't have been that big of an issue. But quite frankly, they were just getting smoked pretty much night in and night out, and it was ugly. I haven't, certainly caught a whole lot of it, but just I know from following them on Twitter alone, it was just it was like, oh, there's another tweet. They're down by 3 goals after the first period again. It just seemed like every weekend that's kind of was the status quo for the Wild. So I think that there probably was a lot more than just the 2-10 record. It was, the team play was absolutely just abysmal. It's not like they were losing via a bad bounce here and there or a dumb, rookie mistake, as I'm sure you get pretty often in the AHL. They were just flat out playing horribly. And that obviously they could only take 12 games of that before they brought out the axe.
And I think we talked about a little bit last week on the podcast, but a lot of it, or at least more of it, had to do with just the team effort. Guys just weren't playing 100% every night, and you could really get that in post-game quotes from whether it was coaches or players, but everyone was saying we got to play at 100%, and they were not. And really it just seemed like Kleinendorf had just lost the locker room essentially, and that's pretty much why front office stepped in and said, okay, we need to just make a change here, because no one benefits from a coach who's fallen on deaf ears.
Interested too. It felt like there was just heard it a little bit of there kind of being a divide between the old guys and the young guys. And a lot of the veterans were scoring a lot and producing a lot, and you weren't seeing much. And the last couple nights has been a lot of Tyler Grayovac scoring and Mitchell's contributing more. It seems like it's pretty small sample size, but it's like you're getting a little bit more out of the younger guys right away.
And Zach Phillips, who was, I think it was Michael Rousseau, actually was getting on him pretty hard. And after Kleinendorf was fired, I think he had like 3 or 4 points in the first couple of games. Torchetti came back. So he obviously needs to turn it around big time.
Yeah, that's so. Hopefully, Torchetti obviously has his team, in the very immediate, moving in the right direction. But we'll see how that ends up for the Iowa Wild. I mean, they still have been dealing with a whole lot of injuries, and dealing with a lot of the Wild's injuries. Quite frankly, they've had the bus going from St. Paul to Des Moines quite a bit so far already this season. So I'm sure that hasn't helped their cause very much. But if they can turn around, that would be nice. It's always good to have good players down in the minors that you can rely on, and you would hope that means that you've got at least a semi-winning team in the AHL.
Yeah, and you want to see guys like Guillaume Jelena developing and Olofsson back in, and they've had there's some problems that'll span between there. I don't think Jelena is stepping up quite yet. And they're down Olofsson. What, is he out 4 or 5 months?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still out for a while. It stinks.
Yeah.
I think, at least from a kind of a young player standpoint, I think it's Michael Karainen has been one of their lone bright spots. I don't have his numbers in front of me. I'm trying to look it up. But
3 goals and 6 assists so far.
Yeah, he's
played 15.
He's done decently for coming over playing in North America for a first year, especially under the circumstances.
Yeah, I saw him at the open practice that the Wild had, and I really liked what little I saw of him there. They did the little group on group scrimmage, and he's definitely got a really offensive side to his game. I think he's not a huge guy, but he's actually got a pretty hard shot from the couple that I saw him take. and he definitely knows his way. Getting into the zone and getting in good position. So, I know the Wild pretty much didn't want to have him up with the team to play on the fourth line. So it'll be interesting to see if and when he finally does make it up to St. Paul and what kind of role he plays and what he can produce, really, because he was a pretty high-level scorer over in Finland. So.
Yeah, I think it'd be exciting to see. I'd be interested, too, if he doesn't end up coming up that what the Wild does with him, or if he even wants to say he has an out where he can return to Finland if he wants, if he's in the AHL.
Sure.
And he'll be 25 before the season's over. So he may be interested in playing in Europe again while he's still kind of in his prime.
I mean, I guess I would maybe prefer to see him get a look next time they call somebody up over Stefan Veilleux, but I mean, I guess it's what they're looking for when they call somebody up next time.
Damn, Steve. It was interesting that, obviously Schrader was a relatively easy call-up because he's been, the leading scorer down there in Iowa. So it was, calling him up was relatively easy. But if you're going to throw a guy on a third line, it might as well be Crandon next time around. But who knows? We'll see. I think they really like the fourth line that they have with Brodziak, Carter, and Fontaine, and that's worked out pretty well so far. So you would think that as long as they can keep those three guys healthy, the next time they call somebody up, it would be for the third line, and maybe Crandon does get a look because Schrader was scratched from the game yesterday. So
he's been returned to Iowa tonight.
Oh, he did. He was okay.
Yeah, the Wild announced they were returning Falk, Bickle, and Schrader to Iowa, and then they retracted it, and they kept Bickle up.
Yep, I saw they kept Bickle. That's right.
So that's exciting for everyone.
More Bickle.
Boy, you ever want to get anybody going, just tweet Stu Bickle and just watch the guys.
I see Rangers fans jumping in on that.
It's painful just watching some of his clips from the Rangers. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah. In the same way that Wild fans are jumping into the Anaheim conversation every time they bitch about Clayton Stoner.
Or Danny Healy.
Actually, today in the forum, I forget where it was, somebody was saying that it was just a bad idea for us to let Clayton Stoner leave, and my reply was, at $3.25 million a year, no one's missing Clayton Stoner.
No.
Yeah.
And it's easy to say that when you've got
those that'll keep popping up of, we need Clayton Stoner's grit. He brought so much grit.
Boy.
And then Keith Ballard gets into a fight.
Advanced metric for grit.
Someday science will catch up with grit.
Yeah, I think that's easy to say when half of your defensive core has the mumps, but it's really just not that. When we have our top four intact, which we should, within the next, within the week, I would hope with Brodin, we don't need him that badly. I mean, obviously you're never going to turn down some offensive depth that's proven at the NHL level, but yeah, for that price, we really don't need him. And we've kind of got, four guys basically, or even 5 or 6. You can make the argument that can play in the bottom two, in the bottom pairing for defense. So really, what's the point in paying him that much just to be another one of those guys that's making basically near the minimum?
Yeah, I guess I thought kind of going to the offseason maybe like $2 million or something would be a decent salary for him, but then Anaheim was just like, here, have $3.25 million for the next 4 years. We're never going to regret this.
Well, think of all that money they saved on only paying Danny Healy $1 million for this season, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Healy's salary is being made up in beers from Clayton Stoner so that Ducks fans don't complain about him.
Yeah.
You're really deflecting all the blame here. Healy.
He's played, 3 or 4 games because he's been injured and...
Yeah, he's had a
back on IR
groin issue. Yeah, he's been on the IR most of the year.
Or either.
Yeah.
He's just really gone downhill. It's frustrating to watch.
It just gives him more time to tweet hilariously offensive things from that parody account. Just the best thing that ever happened to Danny Healy in this state, I'm pretty sure of it.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I did get some 1507 sunglasses when they were on, and they lasted me all of 1 week because they were cheap 1507 sunglasses. So.
Sounds about right. All right. Well, yeah. Did you guys? Was there another article or topic that you guys had to touch on here?
I mean, I guess last week I know I was awfully rough on Nicholas Backstrom, but just kind of going back to today, I felt like the first couple periods he played really well, and that's more how he's been all year. And it's just he's just had some unfortunate bounces or teams playing in front of him that have just kind of not been fortunate for him. Because I mean, you look at his stats, and he's got a 2-2 record and a save percentage of .890, and I just totally feel like that's just not a good reflection of how he's been so far this year.
Look into the stats some on that, because I feel like that was everyone was saying at the beginning of last season too, and there's kind of debate about Harding versus Backstrom, and that the team just wasn't good. Backstrom was getting weird bounces, and the team didn't play as well in front of him. Which, yeah, when you get 3 weird bounces like tonight, there's something happening. There's something weird every time he's in net.
So, I mean, even from like an advanced stats point, his 5-on-5 save percentage is 90.9, which is just slightly better than what Darcy Kemper has been this year. Although that's not an accurate reflection of Kemper either, but
right.
I just don't know. I just feel like the goalie stats, maybe more in general, the goalie stats have just been poor reflections of how a team has played in certain situations.
Yeah, it really seems like, especially with Kemper, that his season, I mean, his stats don't reflect what he's done, because he's really had some amazing stretches, and then it's been not negated, but a little thrown off numbers-wise by a couple of horrific periods that he's had, most notably in New York, and then obviously that start against Buffalo on Thursday clearly didn't help his counting stats very much either. So, I think it's been just kind of a weird year in general for Wild goalies, and the scary part is it's probably going to get a little weirder because Harding is so close to returning, so we really don't know exactly what's going to happen with that situation just yet. I mean, there's a lot of speculation as to what can happen, but the fact that you can't really send any of the 3 of them down makes it a pretty tough deal. Once Harding is finally healthy.
Go ahead. I think kind of going back to what you just talked about on not sending anybody down. I think because Kemper played tonight, he now has to clear waivers to go to Iowa. Because he's played a certain number of games in the NHL to where you don't have to go through waivers, but now, since he's clearly hit that number, if the Wild do want to send him down, he's got to pass through waivers, which obviously I don't see him clearing waivers.
Right.
Yeah, I could see the team maybe try sending Backstrom through, because no one's going to grab him at having another year on a contract, being over 35, and how much he gets paid, but you can't send Kemper through waivers.
No. Yeah, do you think, Backstrom, it'd be interesting to see if they did try that, and because, just basically on the theory that nobody's going to want to pick up that contract, but do you think that they would that be something that they would be willing to do to Backstrom? I got to imagine that they, not necessarily have a soft spot for him or anything, but, a lot of people would read into that as being a pretty ringing negative endorsement on their part as to what they think about his future here.
Yeah, I can't. I don't actually think they'd do that. I mean, I think they'd trade him maybe, but they wouldn't send him to the. It's hard to see him sending any of them to the AHL, but I think Backstrom before Kemper.
Yeah, for sure.
Actually, I think it was Michael Russo tweeted a couple days ago. I don't know if it was just in a direct reply to somebody, or if he just tweeted out in general. But maybe the Wild could try and put Josh Harding through waivers to get him to Iowa if the Wild did not want to carry 3 goalies. It could be more likely that he would get through over a Kemper, but I don't know. It's just kind of something to think about. I mean, I'm not sure I see that necessarily happening, but I don't know. Just a thought that's out there.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, given obviously the MS and everything, and then his injury history on top of the MS, which is also damning. It'd be interesting to see if he would slip through waivers, just based on that alone, and the fact that he's. But this is the last year of his contract, though. I'm pretty sure, right? So yeah. I don't know. It seems like it wouldn't really be that huge of a risk for another team to claim him.
No. And it might be. He might be difficult to trade, and if you claim someone off waivers, the Wild would get something for it.
Yeah.
Which might be more than they get just letting him walk. So
sure.
Maybe there's some appeal there. I don't know if that's necessarily true.
Right.
Because Harding has the potential to steal a lot of games and be in the roster, really.
Yeah.
After he does a conditioning stint in Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's always somebody in the market looking for a goalie, and you could probably get something for somebody if you did want to move a goalie. But what stinks is that maybe 2 more logical teams who would want to trade for a goalie are in your own division, and not, which isn't something you necessarily want to do in Winnipeg and Dallas. Maybe more so Dallas, because Kari Lettonen's been pretty close to a dumpster fire to start the year.
Yeah, he might be the gasoline they're pouring on the dumpster fire Anders Lindback.
Oh, boy,
I remember reading articles at the beginning of the season about how Dallas may have too many goalies after they signed Juicy Arenas to a one-way too, and now they're just paying him one-way money in the AHL. Anders Lindback's terrible, and Lettonen's right there with them.
Lettonen carrying on the fine Jets/Thrashers tradition of goaltenders.
Yeah, and we saw that tonight with Pavelec. Giles, you noted last week about how his numbers really were due for a regression, and we saw that with 3 goals in the first period. So maybe the Giles curse can work in a positive manner occasionally.
I'll just curse the opposition instead of trying to say anything about our team. I'll just go on about whoever we're playing. So, as I look up next week's schedule,
East Coast.
Yeah, I think we got it's Philly, Tampa, and Florida.
Yeah.
Boy, that's our next road trip before we come back home and play the Kings.
Oof.
Yeah, I don't know. I just hate playing on the road because I just feel like we're watching 2 different teams between home and away, and the road team just seems to be lacking confidence in the last 2 years and change.
Yeah, that's the one thing that hasn't improved from the years before. It seems they're just not that good on the road still.
I mean, maybe, I don't know, sometimes I'll just fire this out to the Twitter sphere, but I'll just tweet, maybe it's just the curse of the new road jersey. Maybe it's just not meant to be good.
I know there's a lot of people that
like the New York Islanders fisherman jersey that was just diseased.
The Buffalo Slug jersey.
Yes.
Oh God.
Yeah, maybe. I know a lot of people were hoping for the white jersey to be kind of the inverse of the green jersey, similar to what the Iowa Wild wear. But yeah, maybe you're onto something there. Maybe not letting go of that the old man bear pig design on the white jerseys is something that has cursed this team's road woes dating back to essentially the start of the team. Is they've never really been a good road team at all, and it's really it hasn't gotten any better even with the team getting better, which is concerning.
I mean, maybe if they just bring back the razor blade numbers and put them on the from the old white jerseys and put them on the new ones. I mean, I'd be okay with that. Maybe that'll change their fortunes. I don't know. Just spitballing.
Yeah, that's definitely spitballing. All right. Well, on that note, is there anything else you guys have going on for this week? What do you think for any wild topics that we haven't touched on yet?
Oh boy, I don't know. They're off till Thursday.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you just hope they can maybe rest up, maybe see Jonas Brodin come back and maybe win 2 out of the 3 games on this road trip. Just thinking positively.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, I just want to see them get healthy and be better on the road these next 3 games.
Yeah, ideally, I mean, because the Flyers and the Panthers are, they're not the cream of the crop as far as the Eastern Conference goes, clearly. So it would be really nice to get some good showings there, some wins, and at the very least maybe some points. But that Tampa Bay games can be pretty rough, especially considering we absolutely thrashed them at home, a couple weeks ago. So that one could be a rough game for us. But hopefully they can temper that with some wins over some teams that are scuffling a little bit on the road trip.
Yeah, and you never know. That's the thing with this team. Like you think when they come home and they play a team, like, oh, they should be able to win or play adequately, and which is true most times. But then they go out on the road, and then you just never know what you're gonna get, and that's still a huge problem. But hopefully they built up some confidence from beating Dallas yesterday.
Yeah, it's some tough teams, and feels in terms of the caliber of teams they're playing similar to the last road trip where I just don't know, anything could happen with those teams. Panthers look great tonight. They beat Anaheim 6-2 for the little bit of that game I caught. They were looking pretty good. And
good Lord.
Yeah, and they're pretty stout defensively, and I haven't seen them do an outburst like that offensively, but if you can do it against the Ducks, you could probably do it against the Wild in your own rink.
And what did Willie Mitchell score 5 goals?
Nick Bjugstad.
How does that happen? My goodness.
Alrighty. Well, I suppose that'll wrap it up. I suppose for this week, we'll see what we can do as far as this East Coast road trip, and hopefully nothing that Giles said tonight comes back to haunt him over the next week. But there's always a possibility.
I mean, I would like to point out we did make it through this episode without a vacuum cleaner interruption.
Or mentioning any hockey legends naked.
Yeah.
So that's a plus too.
I did finally get over the haunting nightmare of Don Cherry in the nude. So.
Alrighty. Well, anyway, thanks, Dustin, for substituting in for Charlie this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And you can definitely find all of Dustin's work at Wild Extra, amongst many other places that he does hockey writing for, which are fantastic. All right, well, Giles, will talk to you next week, and all the fans and listeners and people who have actually listened for this long, thank you, and we'll see you next week as well.
Bye!
The worst episode ever.